Today we are in section 1.5, adding integers. When it comes to adding and subtracting integers, it's very much a matter of knowing and being able to apply your rules of adding and subtracting. Okay, so we're going to learn, it's almost like a chant that we learn, okay, as far as what the rules are. And as soon as you learn the rules, you're really good to go. You can do as many of these as you needed to, and you should get the answer right every time. So it's not guesswork. There's definitely a method that you can follow to get these answers right. So here's some terms that you need to know, some vocabulary. Additive inverse, that's a fancy word for the opposite. So anytime I ask you for the additive inverse, I want you to tell me what is the opposite value of that number. So the opposite of 15 would be what?
Negative 15.
Negative 15. The opposite of negative 8 would be?
Negative 8.
Positive 8. And then the absolute, or the opposite of, or the additive inverse of negative 7 is? 7. Positive 7. So additive inverse is opposite. Now in the second section, these are your important rules. Okay, rules for adding and subtracting integers. We're going to talk about this today and tomorrow. All right, but it really kind of all bleeds together, and here's what it is. Same sign, say it with me, same sign, add and keep, okay? Same sign, add and keep. What does that mean? That means to add the numbers together and keep the common sign, and you'll see an example of that in a minute. Different signs, say it with me, subtract and take. What do I mean by take? I mean to take the sign of the larger absolute value. So let's do a quick review. What does it mean? What does absolute value mean? We talked about it on Friday in terms of 0. So here's 0, all right here on the number line. What is absolute value, Andrew?
How many numbers away from the number line is it?
Okay, you're on the right track. How many units is it away from 0? Is it positive or negative? No. Absolute value has no sign. It's just how many units it is away from 0. So the opposite, we talked about it. Any number in its additive inverse, so take 7 and negative 7. It's going to be 0. Take 10 and negative 10. It's going to be 0. So that's another rule that you just need to know. And now the last one, and you're going to hear me say this a lot. Every number has a sign, and where is that sign? In front of the number. Okay, so every year I kind of get into this debate with my students, and they say, no, Miss Kinder, that's a subtraction sign. I say 12 minus 10. And I tell you that 10 is negative. And you say, 10's not negative, that's a subtraction sign. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. Because when you subtract something, it's being taken away. All right? So 12 is positive, 10 is negative here. All right? So every number has a sign, and the sign is in front of the number. You might think, okay, 12 plus 7. This one's a little easier, I think, to wrap our minds around, but is 7 positive or negative? It's positive. Oh, no, that's an addition sign. That's not a positive sign. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. So you see what I'm talking about? You following me so far? Okay, so I'm going to give you a minute just to finish writing down these terms. Okay, so in example 1, before I can figure out what the answer is, bad news, you can't use your calculator. That would kind of defeat the purpose, okay? Before I can figure out what my answer is, I have to first ask myself, do I have same sign or different here? So I'm going to look at the sign in front of the number. Is 54 positive or negative?
Negative.
What about 28?
Negative.
It is negative. You say, well, there's a plus sign here. That doesn't matter. I need to look at the sign right in front of the number. They're both negative, so it's same sign. My rule is same sign, add and keep. So 54 plus 28 is what?
82.
82. And I'm going to keep my negative. Keep my negative. Now, side note, okay, I'm not going to give you really difficult numbers to add, subtract, multiply, and divide because I'm testing you over being able to apply the rules. And I understand you can't use your calculator, so they're not going to be overly difficult problems, all right, to work. I want you to try B, C, and D real quick before we go over it. All right, so what's negative 7 plus negative 6? What would it be? Negative 13. Same sign, add and keep. They're both negative. All right, what about 5 plus 16? 21. Okay, you say, well, that's easy. Well, it's still the same concept, though. They're both positive, so I add and keep. Answer is 21. What about negative 3 plus negative 12?
Negative 15.
Negative 15. Don't forget to keep your common sign. Same sign, add and keep, negative 15. All right, any questions so far? All right, so it's that same sign, add and keep concept. Now in example 2, now I'm going to have different signs. Does anybody remember what my rule was for different signs? You wrote it down. Different sign, subtract and take. Now here's the key here though, guys. It's absolute value. I'm subtracting absolute value. So I'm just looking at the number. I don't even care which one's positive or negative at this point. What is 15 minus 8? What's just 15 minus 8? 7. Okay, 7. And now here's how I figure out the sign of my answer. Which number has the greater absolute value? Not looking at the sign. Is it 15 or 8? Which one's bigger? 15. And is 15 positive or negative? It's negative, so my answer is negative. I take the sign of the number of my greater absolute value. Okay? So since 15 is larger than 8 absolute value, I take my negative. That's what the take means, subtract and take. All right? So now we have negative 23 plus 14. Same sign or different?
Different.
They're different. One's negative and one's positive. So subtract them. What do you get? What's 23 minus 14? 9. And is it positive or negative? It's negative because 23 is my bigger absolute value, and it's negative. So my answer is negative 9. All right, I want you to go ahead and do the last two. What's negative 13 plus 6?
19.
Nope, negative 7. Different sign, subtract and take. All right, don't just look at that addition sign and think you add, okay? Subtract and take. All right, what about negative 20 plus 5? Negative 15. Very good. Negative 15. So in examples 1 and 2, I only had 2 terms in the expression, but now I have 3 or more. So here's my first step. I'm going to use what I call the commutative property. You see commutative property right here? I want you to write commutative property equals order. Okay, that's your key word. And here's what it means, all right? So this is in the recording if you need to go back and listen to it. It means that you can add or subtract in any order. And in this case, you could reorder them as long as you keep the sign that is in front of the term. So in example A, what I want to do first, and this is always my first step, I want to group my positive numbers and my negative numbers together. All right, so I have 71 plus 15, I group my positives, plus negative 14. And now I'm going to simplify, I'm going to combine all my positives and combine my negatives. So what's 71 plus 15? 86. And now I've got my plus negative 14. And now it's different signs, subtract and take. And I get, is it positive or negative 72? It's positive. Why?
Because 86 is higher.
Very good. Because my higher absolute value is positive. All right. So again, on example B, step 1 is to group my positive and negative numbers together. I kind of tend to just write my positive numbers first. So 20 is positive. Any more positive numbers? Nope. So now I'm just going to write in my negatives. Plus negative 16 plus negative 10 plus negative 8. Okay? And now, is there anything I can simplify? Like same sign, simplify? Anything in here in this expression?
8 and 16.
Okay, so negative 8 and negative 16. Anything else? What about my negative 10?
10.
All my negatives I can combine, add and keep. Okay, it doesn't matter how many there are. So negative 16 plus negative 10 plus negative 8, I add and keep, and what do I get? Negative 34. Okay, so it doesn't matter how many there are. Okay, I can combine them. Now, different signs, subtract and take, and what is my answer?
Negative 14.
Negative 14. Why is my answer negative? Because my bigger absolute value is greater. That's exactly right. All right, go ahead and do C on your own. All right, so we should have grouped our 20 plus 8 and our negative 12 and negative 14 together. Okay, and you could have written it in the opposite way. That's fine. All right, and then what's 20 plus 8? 28. What's negative 12 plus negative 14?
Negative 26.
Negative 26, and when you take the difference, what do you get? 2. Who got 2? Who got 2? Good job. Good job. All right, you feel like you're catching on?
Sure.
All right. So in our last example, we're evaluating a variable expression. So now we're just plugging in the number and we're solving. Okay, so plugging in the number and solving. So we've got x plus negative 9. Well, what's my value for x?
22.
Negative 22 plus negative 9. Now the reason I've got to put it in parentheses is to separate this double sign right here. We're going to talk about double signs in a second. All right, so now that I made my substitution, do I add and keep or do I subtract and take?
Subtract and take.
Who says add and keep? Who says subtract and take? Okay, so here's how you know. Do I have same sign or different? They're the same. They're both negative, guys. This addition sign right here doesn't mean anything. I've got to look at the sign right in front of the number. They're both negative. Since they are both negative, I add and keep, which is negative 31. Negative 31.
Okay, so don't look at the sign.
Don't be thrown off by that addition sign. Look at the sign in front of the number. Okay? They're both negative. There's a negative in front of the 9 and a negative in front of the 22. Okay, so let's look at B now. Now I have negative 22 plus 17 plus negative 12. So what did I say is the first thing you do when you're adding 3 or more numbers? Group them. Okay, so I've got 17 plus negative 22 plus negative 12. What can I simplify? 22 and the 12 I can add and keep to make what? 34? Negative 34. And now what do I do? Subtract. Why do I subtract? Different signs. 17 is positive, 34 is negative. Subtract and take. So is it positive or negative 17? And why is it negative? 34 is my greater absolute value. All right, I want you to do the third one on your own. Y minus 18 plus x. All right, so we make our substitution. Negative 12 minus 18 plus negative 22. So let me ask you this. Are they all same sign? Do you have any different sign?
No.
Are there any positive numbers here? No. They're all negative. 22 is negative. Remember, this addition sign doesn't matter because there's a negative in front of 22. So they're all negative. I add and keep, and what do I get? Negative 52. Anybody get negative 52? Negative 52? All right, very good. Any questions? Anything? No question is well, I hesitate to say, but no question is dumb. Hey, if you have a question, then odds are somebody else in here has the same question. Okay, so definitely don't be shy. Anything? All right, so last thing I want to talk about is getting rid of these double signs, okay? We've seen them the entire lesson, and we're going to get away from it. You're going to see it in your homework tonight, but on a quiz or a test, you could see it, and you probably will see it in a different format. So what I'm talking about with a double sign is this plus and negative. Do you remember what we did to a double negative last Friday? What did we change a double negative to? A double negative is a positive. So plus a negative, here's your rule. Plus a negative is a negative. So anytime, you remember how we canceled out the double negative and made it a positive? Now where we see plus a negative, we're going to make it a negative. So instead of saying negative 25 plus negative 15, we're just going to say negative 25 minus 15. And we're going to know 15 is negative because there's a negative sign in front of it. Now here's where I always kind of start tripping up students because they say, no, Miss Kinder, 15 is positive. That's a subtraction sign. But I say it's the same thing. Subtract, negative, you're both taking away. So every number has a sign, and the sign is in front of the number. 15 is negative. So here, negative 25 minus 15 is same sign. And what do you do with same sign? Add and keep. Negative 40. Negative 40. All right, so what about negative 14 plus negative 10? Someone raise your hand and tell me, how would you rewrite it? Laria?
It's going to be a positive.
Plus and negative changes to a negative. Negative. Plus a negative, I'm going to change to a negative. Negative 14 minus 10. Same sign or different, guys? Same. Add and keep. Negative 24. Okay? So my rule for adding a negative plus a negative cancels into a positive. Okay? We change it to, or I'm sorry, cancels to a negative. Whew. All right? So I want you to do the last two. Cancel out your double signs. Anytime you see plus and negative, I just want you to write a subtraction sign. We're going to cancel out our double signs, and then we're going to solve the expression. All right. Haley, how did you rewrite the third one?
Negative 7 minus 5.
Very good. And what was your answer?
Negative.
Very good. All right. Anybody want to tell me how you rewrote the last one? How'd you rewrite the last one? Anybody? Yes.
15. 12.
Uh-huh.
Negative 6 plus 5.
All right. And you can just say minus because minus and negative is the same thing. So now I've got 15 minus 12 minus 6 plus 5. But now, since I've got more than two integers here, what do I have to do next? I've got to group them. I've got to group them together. So 15 plus 5 minus 12 minus 6. And now 15 plus 5 is 20. Hold on. What's negative 12 minus 6? Negative 18. Did you get it? Minus 18. So your answer is 2. Raise your hand if you got 2. Did you get 2? Woo. Okay, so we got some practice to do tonight. Okay, if you understand that, that's everything you need to know for 1.5.